Hi everyone, my name is Valerie Graw. I'm currently the CASC liaison for CASC 19, but I was in the executive committee for CASC 18 last year. So I've been working with the organization now for 3 years. Bahia, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Bahia Simons Lane. I'm the Executive Director of International Student Conferences. I'm very excited to hear Valerie's session today. She has a lot of experience with finding funding for different opportunities, and I'll be sticking around until the end of the session. So if you have questions that I can answer, I'll be happy to answer them. Back to you, Valerie.
Okay, great. So I did put together a bit of a PowerPoint presentation. It's based on like some funding scholarship guide that I made. So none of the information is new, but I did want to highlight some points that may be helpful for you all when you're doing your scholarship searching. I also wanted to first congratulate you all. It's an incredible opportunity to be a part of a CASC, or sorry, not CASC, an ISC delegation. It's going to be a really fun summer for you all, and I'm excited to kind of see the aftermath of all of your programs. So without further ado, I'm going to get into this a bit. Okay. Um, so I know based on delegate experiences that I've talked to in the past, a lot of people have different experiences when applying for funding scholarships and things like that. And I want people to really focus and understand some of the strengths that these programs include. So highlighting any of your scholarships or scholarship searching as well as applications, highlighting or focusing on international and bicultural experiences, as well as language acquisition and cross-cultural skills are really important. And making sure your application shows clearly defined academic and professional development pathways, as well as how these programs will help you with your adaptability and resilience. Um, the format for all of our programs being 2.5 weeks to 3 weeks with very intentional cities that we're showcasing different culture, as well as the aspect of being in a cohort that is traveling together shows a lot of different resilience, especially if the program you're on is like a country model or coming to a country that is not familiar to you, or even going to a new city that is not familiar with you. Those are all really great experiences of growth, as well as this format is unique in the aspect that it's not a typical study abroad experience. It's a lot more academic. You're going to have a lot more sessions and panels. So really highlighting those aspects, I think will be very helpful in your scholarship application. Um, from my experience, where I've been granted the most funding is from my home university. I'm currently a university student at Indiana University. So if your country, oh my gosh, college is kind of a similar format to that. My school is known to have a lot of different resources and scholarships. So I would say really any institution, you just need to know where to look for these scholarships, has money, and they really want students to seek this funding and have access to this funding, because if not, it won't be utilized for the year. So I always say my first pit stop when doing this is going to either my financial aid office, understanding my scholarships. There's all a bunch of different policies regarding how much money you can receive from the university. So it's really important you know that first, as well as like scholarship offices. Sometimes scholarship offices offer different sorts of financial funding. These could be scholarships from like maybe $200 to like 2 or 3,000. Really, any bit helps. So going from the scholarship office, if your university has a scholarship portal, I routinely check that just because a lot of students don't. So that's a lot of money that's going to waste. And you might not even fully need to like meet all the criteria for the scholarship, but because there's such a lack of applications or people looking in this area, it can be a really niche area for funding. If you are fortunate enough to be joining this program with maybe an East Asian Studies major or some sort of similar field with the program you're going into, I think department sponsorships are another great source. A lot of these departments will want to fund your opportunity to maybe advance your cultural or language skills. as well as international or sponsored student funding. If you are a part of any organization, like maybe a Korean American Culture Center or something like that, just using that because of my experience with CASC, but something similar to the program you're doing, this could also be a potential for funding. So really taking a look at what clubs and organizations you're also part of, because this might be another source for you. Then looking into your academic department, I'm part of the International Studies Department as well as the Environment Department. So I would go to my two department heads, try and see if there's any way that I could really show that this program meets criteria or development criteria for my major and see how I would link that to translating like those things that I've learned into my major or my degree when I come back to school. So any major specific scholarships, any faculty nominated awards, sometimes they have specific conference funding for a department you're a part of or a larger school. Those are another great resource. Even if it's just you asking the academic department, talking about the program, setting up a meeting and saying, I really want to do this. Do you have any recommendations or how do scholarships work here? I think that's a really great choice as well. That can also tie into meeting with a representative from your scholarship office if you just need to learn more about how scholarships work at your school. And then if your program has a capstone or if you have any research component, I think um, telling your academic department that this would really tie into that is a great way to show that the funding would be used wisely. If there's any separate funding that goes to just those research fields, I think that's also a great tie-in to funding a trip. My study abroad as an undergrad student, we had specific undergrad research funding with the Honors College, and I wasn't even a part of the Honors College at the time, and I was still able to seek that funding and be granted it because they had so much funding that people weren't applying for. So I always really try and harp on just sending emails to everyone or any department and following up with them because you never know when you might actually get a response back and get some funding that way. I kind of mentioned previous the Honors College. If you are a part of an Honors College, it's even better. These areas usually have some sort of service or leadership program that you can apply to. I would say research tracks are also another thing. Any merit-based scholarships that maybe you can apply to that maybe don't even serve the purpose at ISC, but then would help with your program fees as well. And I think conference and study grants are also usually with these programs, those grants are typically maybe not a lot of money, maybe they're 200 or $300, but that's still some money that will help with a flight or some sort of part of the program fee. And then any international and global offices, I think this is also really helpful for international students because a lot of times these offices offer specific scholarships for their international students. But sometimes you'll see a global engagement scholarship or some sort of cultural ambassador or leadership award. You would really want to highlight how this program can be challenging and how this will make you grow as a leader in this community or in this area, how you want to bring back anything you've learned to your university, highlighting like the diplomatic tools and skills you learn, things like that are really good to highlight as well for those applications. And then I didn't say this yet, but there will be a time for questions at the end too. So if you have anything, we will stay after and you feel free to ask us that as well. So a bit further about where to look, I found that university career centers have been extremely helpful too. A lot of them have targeted areas for professional development and some sort of funding. I think it's best just to make an appointment with them, sit down, talk about how this will highlight your professional development, and see what opportunities they have for scholarships. Because you never know, they might actually offer something that could be specific to this and would really help you. And then some external scholarship examples. Any field-specific foundations, that would be kind of areas that you would need to search up and look up. But sometimes these areas do have some sort of help. Any community organizations, also any clubs you're a part of, as well as cultural or language-based awards. And I haven't had any luck in those areas, but that's just, I haven't really had to look as much. But what I have found that a lot of people aren't always aware of is how your job can help fund some professional development. If you work a university job, a lot of times these departments will hold a specific amount of money for professional development. Usually this money is for their full-time staff, but if their full-time staff doesn't use the entire pot of funding for a conference or whatever, they will usually grant an undergrad or a graduate student some funding. For example, my job, I work in residence life, so a lot of what I do is talking with students. So I really marketed my application as like, if I have this opportunity to do this program, this cross-cultural experience that I'm going to be learning abroad in Korea will translate into my work here when I'm talking to Korean students or Korean American students. So really trying to connect the experience to then how this can help you develop professionally. And it's you can't it's there's no harm in asking too. So it's really one of those things of you have to put yourself out there, which can be challenging and hard, but the worst they can say is no, and sometimes they might even say, yeah, we can give you $300 or $500, and that will really help. Some search tools, when you're doing those meetings with the scholarship office as well as the career center, maybe they'll recommend a database that you can look into. So I would definitely take that. That's a great idea. Any professional associations, if you are a part of a foreign policy group or a young professionals group, those usually have some sort of scholarship or professional development funding as well. And then when you're doing those searches, I just included some keywords that might be helpful to kind of serve in your searches and everything. Okay. Um, and from my experience at looking at scholarships and applications from undergrad students, a lot of times they have challenges like in kind of wording their application. So when you're doing this, just be very intentional about how you're phrasing. You want to really make sure people know the intensity of the program, as well as the commitment and how incredible it is that you've been selected. These are global programs. You're going to be developing in a lot of different ways. So just make sure you're highlighting this and being intentional with your writing rather than just listing these things. So some tips I have, I know a lot of times undergrad students maybe don't take full advantage of university resources. Some things that I didn't really think were that important when I was an undergrad was like our writing services. If your college has some sort of like writing tutor service, I think it's great going and just having them look over your scholarship application. So a lot of times you're just reading the same thing over and over again. You might want a tip. And sometimes they have read through so many different applications, they can really help tailor your application to the application criteria. So that's something I found to be very helpful. Because maybe you're struggling with getting your exact point across, and they might have tips and tricks for how to do that. Then a bit more about some tips. Emphasize your skill. Again, don't just list it. So the example I have is I'm studying Korean and want to get better. No, elaborate a little bit more to maybe talk about how you've been intentional with how you've developed your language skill at this point, but you need that extra step of immersion of being in a group of both like Korean students that can kind of force you to use your skill more, or that have the understanding of that being their first language and understand different ways to phrase things or more contemporary ways to say things. You can also, I talk a lot about the cross-cultural aspect of this program, as well as exchanging perspectives. That's really the whole point of the program, and there's not a lot of programs that allow you the diplomatic opportunity to do that. So just my tip is to be a lot more intentional when you're writing for these applications as well. And then connecting, you always want to make sure you're answering the question, why the scholarship, why you, and why now? So be very intentional about how you're phrasing these questions. Maybe say a specific reason of why you have to be doing this summer before your senior year. Maybe this is going to help you with your capstone. Why you? Well, I bring this and this type of experience, and this would translate well into this program, or maybe this understanding is not as well known, and this is a part of American culture that you want to express, something like that, as well as framework of like what you will do, what you've learned, and how this prepares you for your future impact. talking about maybe you want to work for the Foreign Service. So this opportunity is going to allow you to study abroad, or it's going to allow you to talk with people in diplomatic ways that's going to translate into your future career field. Those are all really great ways to show that this scholarship is going to really help impact you and that the scholarship and program is necessary. And then some ways to phrase your personal statement, depending on how long the application is, it can really, I guess, vary. So you might want to talk a bit about your motivation, defining moment, a bit about where you're at academically, any challenges, maybe some financial challenges, and how you've grown from these challenges or how some of your perceived growth will become or something like that. And then connecting to why the scholarship matters and any future goals and impacts. And then my tip, of course, does your school have a writing center? I really think it's important to use that resource because once you graduate college, it's going to be a lot more difficult to get all of those tips and grow academically with your writing. So some sample sentences, you will be navigating two educational systems. How will this strengthen your resilience or your problem solving skills? The scholarship would allow me to focus fully on academic excellence and meaningful engagement. I always think this is important. Being away for 3 weeks or 2 weeks might be very difficult for you financially because you're not going to be able to work that time too. So I think this is another avenue that you can explore in your application writing and show that the financial need is not only for the program fee, but it's also to cover some basic amenities for the 2 weeks that you will not be able to work too. And then some things to avoid when you're looking at these scholarships, assuming you're not eligible. So unless you're explicitly excluded from the group, I would always say just try and apply because you never know. If they don't receive enough applications, then your application may be the application and you get the funding. Not fully explaining the achievement of being accepted into this program and how unique of an opportunity it is. I think that people don't really give the full weight of how incredible the opportunity is to do a program with ISC. So really talking about that and making sure you're intentional with that is very important. So listing any achievements without reflecting on them. If you got some sort of scholarship to maybe study like a critical language, I would really highlight that and talk about, well, I want to continue to study this language, so this program is going to help me do that. Things like that, connecting your previous experiences to an experience you want to have will really show that you've come across a journey, that this program is not just something entirely new, but that there are those past experiences to connect with it. And then reusing the same essay without tailoring it. This is the same rule with resumes. They should always be tailored to the specific thing you're applying for. So I know it can be a little hard with time as you all are busy as students, but that is really important, is making sure your essays are unique for each application and that you've also met with different resources on campus that can kind of guide you to those scholarships as well. Okay, then just a little bit of a final checklist. Making sure you meet the eligibility requirements, that you're not exactly excluded from something, tailoring your essay for the scholarship, clearly explaining your program and your experiences, kind of hype yourself up. You are an incredible student that has come so far as to be selected to this program. Make sure you're highlighting all of those past experiences that led you to this experience and how this experience will help you in the future. I really love the aspect of having something read by a lot of different people because then you get a lot of different opinions. So really make sure you proofread and review your essays, but then you also have someone else do that. So that could be a mentor you might have, or maybe even someone that's done your program previously. I think a lot of alumni of ISC programs are very willing and they want to help. So if you know someone or maybe an EC, that might be a great resource for you too. Just make sure you're aware of all the deadlines, however you like to keep track of that by calendar or whatnot, because it does stink if you miss a deadline for a good scholarship opportunity. But if you do, you can always email to and ask. Maybe if they haven't received a lot of applications, they'll consider you as well. Then finally, you got this. Congrats again on being selected to an ISC program. It's going to be a great time and you're going to make a lot of amazing memories as well as friends that will last for a long time. And please feel free to reach out to ISC if you need any supporting documents to help supplement any scholarship applications you have. Thank you.
So
And mm,
before we go to questions, maybe I'll just briefly share a few things that we can do to help you guys. So excited to have all of you joining our conferences. I know that it can be expensive for some people. We reduce the fees as much as we can for you guys because we rely on donations, et cetera. So you're paying a lot less than we actually pay for program. But that being said, it can be a challenge and we want to work with you. So there's a few things that we can do. You know, you can reach out to us if you're struggling to find scholarships to apply for. We can help you with that. ISC can provide a letter on your behalf, basically talking a little bit about the program and how competitive it was that you were selected, and you can use that as like a supplement in as you apply for funding. If your university offers an internship, some kind of internship funding, you can discuss with us how we might be able to turn your experience with the program into an internship that may require a little bit of extra work on your part, but may enable you to get funding from your university to cover that experience. Might require, some kind of report or essay or something. It depends. Each school kind of handles internships slightly differently, but we're happy to work with you on that. And then, of course, we do offer payment plans. So if that's something you want to spread out your payments because it's easier to pay smaller payments than pay it all at once, I can help you with that. We can set up something so that you can break up your payments over time.